Okay, I got them all off, got them all cleaned up, got the deck washed off, cleaned up, and it's dried. Now I go back and I clean the rails pretty good on the bottom, and I start one off here. Over there, I might start one off. Usually I do. And the reason for that is I don't want them starting out on a seam. Like right here, I don't want them, if I didn't start it off back, it would end on a seam. I don't want to end on a seam. See, it would end on that seam. So I want to span the seam, and you have half ones, and a half one will, if you started it back, it will assure the fact that you do not end on a seam. The trouble there is, if you start with both the short ones at the back on both sides, you will not end on a seam, but you will end in the same location. So in other words, this one will end at the same place that one over there ends. There's almost no way of doing it other than, like I'm doing it here. So I give up some on the back. If you want to think about it giving up, I think about it as giving up. And I lose a little bit on the front, but that's, when you got a long mill, a few inches really doesn't matter that much. If it mattered that much, I would buy another section. Once I have all the track, so then I put this side on, line them up real good, and I line them up with this side here. Then I'll go with that tool wherever it's at they give you, and I'll do the other side, taking care to every inch of the way to make sure that they're spaced properly. What I'll do at the same time is, well, actually prior to this, is I will go along and I will recheck. I've almost never, I can't remember ever being off long ways level. I will be off perpendicular level, and I think that's, and I have the deck bolted to those 6x6s. I think that is most of the time has been because I put some of the, it's not bolted at every 6x6, and some of the 6x6s were odd sizes, like this one down here. So what I do in that case, I just put me some steel washers underneath, and there might be, well, that one down there is going to need some steel washers for sure, but I hadn't got that far. There might be 3 of the whole total length that I need steel washers, and this down here I need actually a piece of oak and steel washers. But and that's because there's some variances in the we call them 6x6s, but they are what you get. I could have went through there when I bought them and cut them all the same size, but it's hardly worth it. And then also sometimes if I would just rotate this one this way, it might be right. It might be nothing more than the fact that I have it wrong. It might be correct in one dimension and not correct in the other. But anyway, at the same time, when I'm taking all this off, I'll go back through and recheck track end to end, left to right, nose to tail, and then put the rails back on. There might be something else I'm going to do too. I can't really remember, but right now. But at this point right now, I'm putting the tracks back together. Just remember the other thing I was going to say. These rails, when I put them back together, I look down. It might be hard for me to line up, but I look down the rail to make sure this part is true all the way down. Because a lot of times, because of me hitting stuff or dropping a log on it or one thing or another, it will waver a little bit. So if they're wrong right now, and this one is wrong on down there, right now I will straighten them up, and just a few taps of the hammer. And at one point I thought about just going down through there and welding them all the way down. But so you can see this one, if you can see, it's hard for me to visualize what you can see. This one is true all the way down. This one is not. So there's a few little spots down there I got to tap it one way or the other. Because if you don't, as you're driving down your saw head down, when it gets to that, it's going to want to drag. And you'll be thinking you're hitting a knot or something like that, and it's nothing more than just that thing dragging. And right where that is out, I can actually feel the lip being much more than it is in the other areas. And that's probably from going down there and hitting that and then having to ride over one way or the other. But that's the other thing I'll do. As I put them on, I make sure they're true and square, and then I bolt them out. If not, I straighten them out. I got all the tracks back on. I don't have all the bolts on, but I put in 2 per rail just to make sure. And I'll run it up. I got the saw head back on, picked it up, put it back on. And now I'll just run it up and down and make sure that it rolls good. And it does. Now, you can see right there, it's hitting. You can see it here. That's from the rails not being exactly level. You can take an angle grinder and smooth that down a little bit. That's nothing more than the fact that this is an old mill, and I've had as I added extensions on, of course, they will be top shape rails. So you're putting a top shape rail in the middle of a bunch of half wore out ones. So that's what that's all about. But it rolls good, or a lot better than it was for sure. And right through there is where I'm usually care about the most, this stretch, because this is where I'm doing most of my work at. The on the ends, like where it first hit, I put the rails that aren't quite as good on each end, because there you heard one hit there. That was probably hitting a nut, probably what that was. But if it sounds like a railroad train, that's kind of the way it works. And every now and then, you might not have heard it, but you could actually hear it kind of screech just a little bit on the side. And that's from one of the things being a little bit bent out of shape. I know where that is because I heard it just then. Right in that area right there, right where I'm looking. And but I'll get my straight edge. Either I didn't tap it back in right or something, some kind of way I messed up. But now I'll come back and put in the rest of the bolts. I've already tightened every bolt on the side, and I've gotten almost every one tightened on the bottom. So, and of course I retightened all the bunks. But I don't know, once every 2 years or something like that, I'll pretty much go through and tighten every single thing, take the rails off, clean them up, straighten them up, and then put it all back together. Dang, that's a mess. Anyway, that's tomorrow's job. It might rain tomorrow and I won't have to do it tomorrow too.